April 5th, Easter, 1722. As he was crossing the South Pacific Ocean, Dutch Admiral Jacob Roggeveen discovered a small island. The size of the island was approximately 170 kilometers squared, 1/10 the size of Jeju Island. Despite the possibility of being overlooked due to its small size, there was a reason that this island caught Jacob's attention. This reason was the large stone statues which stood out even from afar. It is said that Jacob and his crew landed on the island with great apprehension upon the sight of hundreds of majestic stone statues looking up at the sky. There were approximately 5,000 native inhabitants of the island living entirely cut off from civilization. But what really surprised Jacob was not the native inhabitants, it was the stone statues. The stone statues were unexpectedly large from up close. Apparently, it was overwhelming simply standing in front of them. There were more than 800 stone statues lined up along the coastline. Upon returning from his exploration, Jacob named the island Easter Island because he'd encountered it on Easter. He tried to figure out how the stone statues were created, but he couldn't figure out the secret. What made it especially puzzling was the fact that no rocky mountains or strong, solid trees to help move the statues were seen on the island. Around 50 years later, British explorer James Cook visited Easter Island. He ultimately set his eyes on Moai, the giant stone statues he had only heard of in rumors. He was truly surprised by how such solid stones were elaborately carved into statues. Upon observing the stone statues, James discovered several strange things. One thing he discovered was that the Moai's appearances were quite different from that of humans. Their ears were longer than half of their faces, their nose were extremely large, and the sizes of their heads did not match their bodies in proportion at all. Following James's visit and testimony, Easter Island began to gain popularity. Word of mouth was indeed the beginning of a nightmare for the island's native inhabitants. American and Peruvian slave raiders kidnapped them, bringing them back to their countries to force them into labor. On top of that, various viruses such as syphilis and smallpox were spread throughout the island by outsiders, resulting in the death of the native inhabitants. Having lived in isolation, the native inhabitants had absolutely no immunity to foreign viruses. As a result, the Easter Island civilization collapsed in 1870, around 100 years after its rise to fame. However, that does not mean the world stopped talking about Easter Island. This is thanks to the bizarre legends surrounding the island as well as the unsolved mysteries of the Moai. The smaller Moai were approximately 4 meters in height, while the larger ones were approximately 21 meters. The weight varied between 20 to nearly 80 tons. It was unclear whether it would really have been possible to move around 800 of these giant stones to different areas of the island by human strength alone. Consequently, people started associating the Moai with the Egyptian pyramids. They speculated about whether the native Easter Islanders learned the secrets of moving and carving the stone statues from ancient Egyptians. Some scholars even stated that the Easter Island civilization may be a remnant of the Atlantis civilization. The reason behind such hypotheses was the mysteriousness of the Moai, which suggested they could only have been created by time-transcending techniques. Later, in 1968, a famous Swiss conspiracy theorist named Erich von Däniken made a shocking statement. The Moai of Easter Island were created by a small group of intelligent beings that was stranded on Easter Island owing to a technical hitch in ancient times. Däniken also presented several grounds to back up his statement. Firstly, the stone statues were all carved facing the sky. Through the direction the stone statues were facing, Däniken suggested that they were a tribe that descended from the sky. He also talked about the legend of Makemake that was passed down among the native Easter Islanders. Makemake itself means birdman. Däniken stated that Makemake was either an alien with wings or a flying object, but perhaps also as a sign to the friends who were looking for them. The strangers extracted a colossal statue from the volcanic stone. Following his statement, Däniken went as far as publishing a book to support his hypothesis. The hypothesis about aliens having created the Moai had successfully gained the public's attention, contributing greatly to promoting both Easter Island and the Moai worldwide. Scholars, however, were indifferent about it. Study results showed that the stones were made of volcanic rock, making it much easier to carve them into statues compared to ordinary stones. It was also highly likely that the giant stones were moved using trees, as it was further revealed that Easter Island once had thick palm trees. Even so, there were scholars who refuted this. The basis for this refutation was that palm trees may be hard on the outside but not on the inside, making them unfit for moving giant stones weighing up to 80 tons. The stone statues were walked down the road and installed in the landscape. According to an explanation from Professor Carl Lipo of California State University, this is how the Moai were moved. To walk the stone statues, the native Easter Islanders would have had to harness the statues with ropes from both sides and behind and then take turns pulling the ropes. This was a hypothesis about how the stone statues could have been moved by using equal force to tilt them side to side while pulling them forward. In order to prove this, Professor Lipo manufactured a concrete model weighing around 4.5 tons and personally performed the experiment. His research team, consisting of 18 people, actually succeeded in moving the concrete model by following the chant to pull the ropes. The team managed to move the model 100 meters in approximately an hour. Professor Carl Lipo's experiment was simply a stunt. Professor Joanne von Tilburg from the University of California, Los Angeles dismissed this, saying that it was an impossible hypothesis. The reason for the dismissal was the fact that the model used in the experiment did not have the same shape as the actual Moai, and that it was very inefficient considering the time and manpower spent on the experiment. Moreover, according to Professor Lipo's hypothesis, the Moai should have had a rounded lower part so that they could be moved by the recoil. In reality, however, each stone statue had a differently shaped lower part. And obviously, the method used to move a stone statue weighing around 4.5 tons did not apply to ones that weighed 20 times as much. The island may be small, but using ropes to move the Moai by recoil alone would be unrealistic. Most scholars, including Professor Tilburg, have explained that trees were used to carry the Moai and that reckless lodging and environmental destruction had led to the fall of the island. It is estimated that there were approximately 30,000 native inhabitants in Easter Island's biggest revival. Jakob, the first civilized man to visit the island, had estimated the number of native inhabitants to be approximately 3,000 people. In conclusion, Easter Island's culture was completely ruined by the selfishness of civilized people. However, an influential academic theory stated that even before it happened, the island was already on the path to destruction due to the obsession and madness over the construction of the Moai. But then again, this is all speculation, and nothing has been revealed. In 2015, it was revealed through an excavation that Moai with both upper and lower body parts exist. It's judged that it would have been impossible to move those with human power, even if trees and ropes were used. Was there really a supernatural power involved in the moving process? It is said that the Moai are all facing the inner part of the island, meaning their backs are facing the sea. They are all looking in the same direction. Might there be a secret that remains unsolved at the end of their gaze? This has been Strange Night.